My Computex coverage is brought to you by Wootware and MSI. Be sure to check out their links down in the video description. MSI has already shown that they can make an incredibly powerful small form factor PC when they released the Vortex earlier this year. Adding to their lineup of small form factor PCs, MSI introduced their new Aegis X PC as well as their new VR backpack. The Aegis X comes with flagship specs of an Intel Core i7-6700K processor with a GTX 1080 full desktop graphics card, with the CPU coming with a custom 90mm water cooling solution. The custom motherboard that MSI designed for the Aegis allows for an M.2 SSD and a single SODIMM memory module on the rear of the motherboard, with another M.2 slot and SODIMM slot being on the front of the motherboard. At the top of the Aegis, beneath the panel, there's an optical drive which you can remove to reveal two 3.5-inch drive bays and space for a 2.5-inch drive as well. And on the bottom portion, you'll find the 600-watt 80+ silver power supply. On the rear for I/O, there's 6 USB 3.1 Gen 1 ports, 2 USB 2.0 ports, a bank of audio ports, Wi-Fi antenna ports for 802.11 AC Wi-Fi, a killer E2400 gigabit LAN input, and a PS2 input. You'll also notice, in addition to having the standard GPU outputs, there's an additional HDMI port below that. That HDMI port is for MSI's VR link, which allows you to connect the HDMI out on your GPU through to the front of the chassis for an easier VR setup. Above the VR Link HDMI port on the front, you'll find a USB 3.1 Gen 2 Type-C connector and 2 USB 3.0 Gen 1 ports, power button, mic in and headset out ports, and finally MSI's one-click overclocking button. All of this is packed in a rather small 19.6-liter case, which also comes with MSI's Mystic lighting setup. The reason for the raised design of the chassis above the base has to do with the cooling of the Aegis, which allows for the PSU and CPU to get airflow separately from one another, since the CPU's radiator is actually exhausting out the bottom of the case. Moving over to the VR backpack, it's a completely wireless solution. That is, the backpack doesn't have any power inputs going into it, although there's still wires for the Vive headset. It boasts an Intel Core i7 processor with a full desktop GTX 980 GPU on an MXM module for future upgradability, with enough battery life to last between 1 to 1.5 hours of VR usage between charging. There's plenty of ventilation on the side to allow the system to breathe, and for I/O on the top, there's 4 USB 3 ports and HDMI out, as well as a headset jack to allow the Vive to be hooked up seamlessly for a completely uninhibited VR experience, as long as you have enough room space to move around with the backpack on. But take note that all of the specs for the VR backpack are still pending, since this is just MSI's prototype. The Aegis is completely VR ready with its top-of-the-line specs, Pascal GPU, and front-facing VR outputs. And the MSI backpack is powerful, as well as an upgradable solution for VR on the go. Let me know down in the comments what you think of the Aegis X and backpack, as well as MSI's ability to create powerful, compact gaming machines. And again, I'd like to thank Wootware and MSI for sending me to Computex 2016. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all of my Computex coverage, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Cheers.